All right, what is up, all you real estate loving individuals? This is episode number 11 of the Real Estate Take podcast. I'm your host, Wendell Butler. This is a go-to podcast with tons of information regarding the current real estate market, where we get various real estate professionals' current take on different areas of real estate. For today's guest, we have Tony Eisenhauer. Did I say that correctly?
You did.
Killed it. All right, Tony Eisenhauer is a fix and flip investor out of Worcester, Massachusetts. He started his real estate journey in 2019 and now has 7 rental properties and has done multiple fix and flips. In his real estate career so far, Tony has experienced using creative financing to be able to obtain properties with $0 out of his pocket. So we'll have to jump into that a little bit. In addition to his fix and flip business, he has owned 4 other businesses since 2014. One currently is a junk removal business where he is hoping to gain some organic fix and flip leads from them as well. So let's welcome Tony Eisenhauer. Tony, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Good to have you. I don't have a lot of fix and flippers, haven't had a lot of fix and flippers on the podcast, so it'll be awesome to get your take and your experience on doing that and kind of turning them into long-term rentals as well. So I'm excited to hop into this. So I just want to get started with a basic introduction of who you are and what got you into real estate investing. Just kind of give us a little background of your backstory.
Yeah, man. Like you said, I'm in the Worcester, Mass area, Central Mass. I do have properties in Northeast Connecticut as well, but I kind of got into real estate just by listening to a ton of podcasts, man. Bigger Pockets. I was 2019. I was driving. I had a transportation company at the time. And so I was in the seat like 12 hours a day, just driving a dump truck, a triaxle. It was good in the sense that I was able to have this much time to listen to podcasts, but I also knew at the same time, like, it's not what I wanted to do long term. Spending that much time in the truck and listening to these podcasts, I was like itching to just get my first deal, man, and kind of made the decision to just jump into it. At the time, I was renting a house in Oxford, Mass. That's where I live now. And there's actually 2 parcels on this property. So it had 2 houses on it. And we ended up buying the front house, which was just a fix and flip, which we ended up burring.
Was that your first deal?
Yeah, that was my first investment property. That it was a burr. I had prior real estate, but they were personal homes. So that was my first actual investment property.
Do you know how many people I've met that have done so you used to drive like tractor trailers, like 16-wheelers that we're talking about?
Yeah.
There's so many people that I've met that are 18-wheeler drivers that are getting into like real estate. And I think it is because you just start listening to podcasts as you're driving. That's what I want to do.
Yep.
Definitely. I got people in my mastermind of like the Better Life tribe that I'm part of. Literally, I have a guy there that does truck driving and he's getting into wholesaling and fix and flipping. Sounds just like that story that you just said, which is awesome. So yeah, like what made you hop right into doing a burr for your first fix and flip? People don't usually hop right into being as creative as that. I'm sure that Bigger Pockets kind of open your eyes to it and you're like, I want to do that. But like, What gave you the motivation or kind of the guts to go do that for your first one?
Yeah, I honestly just dove into it, man. I was like I said, I was driving truck full time at the time and I knew it's not what I wanted to do. And I had the opportunity at the time to buy this house. I built good rapport with the owner. So the owner actually owned my house and this front house and we built good rapport. I was still renting my house at the time. And I was like, dude, let me buy the front house. Like whenever you're ready to sell it, I want it. And long story short, he actually moved to California. So he was out of the picture for a while and he had a crappy tenant in there. And I just stayed on him. And I was like, whenever you're ready, man, I got cash. I'm ready to buy it. So I ended up buying it cash for 90 grand. It was a dump though. Like the lady that lived there should not have been living there. It was one of those.
It's like a holy situation.
Yeah, man. The place was falling apart bad. So put 100 grand into it. So I was into it for like 190 grand. Saw the potential just from listening to podcasts, audiobooks and stuff. I was like, maybe I'll get some of my money back out of this to buy my next deal. And so that's what I did. I put a renter in there, refinanced it, on to the next one.
What was the ending refinance? Like how much did you buy it for? How much did you end up having to put into it? And then what was the refinance amount?
Yeah. So actually originally we did like a line of credit, which I'm not sure if it's called a line of credit on a commercial, on an investment property like that, but it was essentially a line of credit to where we got 115,000 out of it and they took first position on the house, obviously at that point, because I owned it.
Oh, awesome. So it's kind of like I think it's called like a relock. Is that what it was? Like a rental?
Yeah.
Line of credit in a way?
Yep. So it was like no restrictions. I could use it for whatever, but it wasn't a full cash out refi.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then you literally just took that money and just put it into something else?
Yeah. I actually bought my first, the next flip after that, which was in Worcester. That one was off market on one of those auction auction sites. I think it was Hubzu. And I signed on there one day and I saw that property. I was like, I'm going to bid on this property. At the time, I didn't have my real estate license. So I hit up my buddy and I was like, dude, there's a pretty good property in Worcester. I think I want to put an offer in on it. So he signed in on the app and we went through the whole process, and I was bidding back and forth with this guy, which was a whole process in itself. I was like, if I get to this certain number, like I'm out. And we got to that number and I was like so invested into the deal. I was like, just do another 1,000. So I ended up paying like $5,000 more than I should have, just because I was excited. You know what I mean? But we did well on that one. We made 65,000-70,000 net.
Nice. So like, yeah, that site's kind of like eBay, isn't it? Like when you like,
it's
starting
so
to,
bad.
Like, yeah, you're like pushing like 1,000. What happens if you like get to a number and then you win it and you're like, snap, I gotta want it? Did you put down an initial deposit or anything for it? Or
yeah, I think it's I don't know if it was $1,000 or $2,000 deposit that you'd lose if you back out. But yeah, we did have to put the deposit.
Interesting. It's pretty cool. So like this second one, is this where you kind of got creative with financing to like basically not use much of your money out of pocket, or was that later down the line? Tell us a little bit about that. Just so people know, like he's wearing like a sub 2 hat, which means it's a creative way to basically get into deals, very minimal amount of money. And you're also helping out the people that are possibly in trouble. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about peace sign, the sub 2 sign, and then let's talk a little bit about maybe like a deal that you've done that was creative, similar to that, or in some aspect.
Yeah, definitely. It goes back to bigger pockets again, man. Like I was listening to Pace Morby. He was on an episode there, and he's actually the one who kind of coined the term sub 2, built a whole community around creative finance called Creative University. And it's all different. Basically, all it is all creative ways to buy properties. And as soon as I listened to that podcast, it resonated with me so much, because he was taking over these properties with little to zero money down. And he was just stacking cash flow every month, getting these rentals. And I was like, oh man, I got to start doing this. So I looked into sub 2. I signed up actually not that long ago, 4 months maybe, but I was familiar with like I said, the process for the past couple of years. I've been listening to Pace for a long time. But subject 2 essentially is taking over somebody's payments. The mortgage stays in their name. It gets deeded over to you, but the mortgage actually stays in their name, and you use like a third party servicer to make those payments for you. Yeah, it's super legit. It's an easy way to get into properties. Like if you had a low equity situation to where, like, let's say you had, even on the retail market, let's say somebody wanted $500,000 for their house and it's really only worth $450 on the market, you could potentially give them that $500,000 if they give you terms, which basically just means they're willing to let you take over their payments subject to, and you can kind of not worry about that $50,000 right now, because as we know, real estate goes up in value every year for the most part. So kind of banking on that. But yeah, it's an easy way to get into real estate, and a lot of times you can get in with zero money down.
Yeah, and essentially you're helping someone that might be in a fishy situation too, because if you take over maybe a mortgage that they can't make payments on, and then you're basically making payments for them, you're helping them like not get foreclosed on and have a terrible report on their credit or something like that. But you're also helping them maybe out of a sticky situation. Now, when you do these, you can do them multiple ways. Obviously, you can do it to like fix and flip, or you can do it to do like a long-term rental. Like, what's your kind of play on that?
Yeah, I'm actually going through the process right now, like you had said, with the foreclosure in Oxford. And it's actually a really good chance to tell you about that story, because she essentially was going to foreclosure. She's $20,000 behind on payments, and her mortgage balance is like $90,000. But she was going to lose the house completely February 14th. The auction date is scheduled for February 14th. So what I was able to do is come in and offer to take over, pay those arrears for her, essentially, keep the mortgage in her name, write her a check for $100,000, which she was going to get nothing. She was going to lose the house. And then basically my exit strategy for that one is going to be fix and flip, which you can still do sub 2. Deed still gets transferred in my name, like I said. So once it gets transferred over through title and escrow, I own the property. I go in, fix it up, put it on the market, and make my cash there.
Yeah, and then that basically wipes this clean slate for everybody involved too, right? Because once you sell it, basically she's good and you're good. Obviously, you make your money too. So it's just like a win-win-win for everybody. And then someone's there that's happy with the flip, living there with the family.
Right. Yeah. The best part about it too is like a traditional close obviously takes 30 days. With sub 2, it's just a matter of you can close in the same day, really, if you had title and escrow set up. Yeah.
So it's really quick. Now, do you ever run into problems with sub 2? People always bring up like the current mortgage or the current loan, like calling the loan if they see that the title was switched. Have you run into issues, and how would you deal with those if that was the case, to like kind of show people that it's not really like as scary as you think it is? Like banks actually work with you. But just give some insight on that.
Yeah, like you said, banks do typically want to work with you. Obviously, they're not in the business to sell houses. But there is something called contract for deed in Massachusetts, to where if the note was called, you can actually do a contract for deed or land contract. So you're essentially you're putting the property in a contract, a different type type of contract than you typically would. And it's kind of just like a loophole around the due on sale clause.
Interesting. So it's kind of like you get deeded the property, but you're not officially deeded it. It's like they can't say due on sale because it's deeded. It's kind of like, it's like setting you up to get the deed the second you complete like a certain milestone or something, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So like it's not yet there, but it pretty much is based on like you and the owner of the building. But to the bank, they can't really say they can't say that it really happened. So they can't do it.
Right.
Which is that's pretty cool. Because I've heard things, I live in Charlotte and we have people called Charlotte buyers here that do sub 2. They didn't tell me they do anything like that, but they say when they do sub 2 and like the banks kind of give them like a note to basically pay the loan off, whatever. They usually don't really follow up with it. The bank doesn't, at least. It's kind of just like a scare tactic, but they always write like a detailed letter to the bank saying, we're just taking over the loan to make payments to you and we're going to make these payments and I'll come in and like make these payments every single month. And then when the bank like sees them start to pay, the bank's like, oh, well, we're getting paid, so who really cares, because we're making the money when we need to. Then they explain like they're going to basically fix and flip it or whatever and give the bank like their money back still. So the bank's usually okay with it. It's kind of like an automatic, I feel like it's like an automatic thing that like they have on their mortgages, that when the deed gets transferred, they just automatically send out like a letter, like some banks, we want the loan. But they don't really want to do that because the whole foreclosure situation and dealing with that, if you don't pay it back, it's a pain for banks and it costs a lot of money.
Yeah, definitely.
But cool. Yeah. So like, let's go back to like your first couple deals, because I want to dive a little deeper into them. So like, as you were doing your first fix and flips, what was like some lessons that you learned during that process that if you can go back, you would have told yourself from the beginning? Or if like someone's trying to get into fix and flips currently, what's something that you could say like that you wish that you knew when you first got into your first one? Because it sounds like you just hopped right in, like without even a mentor or anything. You just like, let's go. And then you probably learned a lot.
Yeah, I did. I've been lucky. Like I said, I did a ton of research, so it's not like I was going in completely blind to a lot of this stuff. But the first flip I did, believe it or not, I didn't really make too many mistakes. It was super easy. All we had to do was go in there and paint. I had to fix up like the deck outside, fix some flooring. We were in and out of there in like a month, and I had it on the market. So it was just all that one was just a really good find. I think there was only 2 people or 3 people bidding on it when I got it. So it was just one of those ones that was just a good deal. I knew the market was good there. I knew it was in a really good area. And it was also in that price range to where it was like FHA buyers, first time home buyers. So I think because it was like 360, I think the sale price was 360,000. So there was just a million people coming through on it.
Oh, ready to buy it. Like, let's go.
Yeah. I had an open house Saturday, Sunday, and we had like 100 people come through between the 2 days.
Jeez. Was this during like COVID too?
Yeah, this was 2021.
Oh yeah. I remember those days. You would have like open house for like even like a box on the street. There'd be like 6,000 people in line.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it was a great time. Great time, especially with fix and flipper. If you can get something and flip it, it just, the amount of profit you can get there was crazy. You almost like couldn't fail. So like speaking of that, like going through that market and then going into this market now obviously you have to be a little bit more detailed with your analysis of properties and your breakdown of numbers. What's your take on the market right now, and what is some advice that you would give that you're doing or looking for in your properties to make sure that it's a good deal? Because we have obviously there's a lot of people that started fix and flipping in COVID times and they did really well, but now they're having a hard time because obviously I want to say it's a normal market still, but it's more normal than that time.
Definitely.
So give you insight on that a little bit.
Yeah, I still think it's a great time. I think, and it's just speculation here, obviously, but I think this year going into 2025, I think rates are going to continue to come down. So I think that it's just going to be a very competitive market again. I think there's going to be maybe not necessarily bidding wars again, but it's definitely going to be a market more like 2021 than now, just because right now there's not a lot of inventory. When the rates are high, people aren't selling their houses. They don't want to lose their low interest rates. So I'm a big advocate for just kind of honestly, just because the market's doing something, I don't ever stop. I don't ever want to stop. I just want to kind of change my strategies, tighten up my numbers a little bit, run numbers conservatively and keep moving.
Yeah. Well, they say everything is off of supply and demand, right? So there's not a lot of supply right now, but there's a good amount of demand, especially as interest rates go down. Like once they go down, there's going to be a lot of demand. There still won't be much supply because you got all those people that have homes that are like in a 2 to 3% interest rate that don't want to sell unless they make like a ridiculous amount on it, like very, very overpriced house or sale on it. So I think, I agree with you. And obviously, yes, it's all speculation, but I do agree that it's still a great market for investing. It is hard for home buyers.
definitely.
But you can basically make it any type of market in real estate good as long as you
Yeah.
approach it the right way.
What I tell people too, especially people looking to buy their first or next investment property, is like, listen, if you can make the numbers work now with the higher interest rates and it cash flows and you're in an appreciating market, it's a no-brainer. Even if the cash flows $100, like when you refinance that property in 3, 4, 5 years, whatever, 2 years, the numbers are just going to be better on it. So if it makes sense now, even just barely, it's a good appreciating asset. I think it's still a good deal.
Absolutely. And people forget that rent is like the one number in real estate that just consistently keeps on going up. I mean, home prices obviously too, but the market can make that a little volatile. But anytime the home prices go down, the rents are still going to be stable. Sometimes rents might dip like 5%, but then they're right back to just that straight, steady up line. So
right.
That's one good thing about like long-term renting too, and using that as a play. But you're right. Like if you can do a deal now or when the interest rates are high, it's just icing on the cake when the interest rates go down and you can refinance and just get even more cash flow.
Right.
But yeah, so based on like your experience so you have a couple long-term rentals and then you do fix and flipping too. So all those long-term rentals, just burrs that you've done of properties and turn them into long-term rentals, or did you buy those with some of the cash you got from your fix and flips just to have kind of that portfolio getting set up? And what's your plan for like scaling your business and your approach with that?
Yeah, definitely. So that one of my rentals is that first burr that I told you about. I still have a renter in that one, but I have 2 duplexes and a commercial garage in Northeast Connecticut. And I was fortunate enough.
Where in Northeast Connecticut?
Danielson.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I got a property in Putnam. The Quiet Corner. The Quiet Corner is actually very it's good cash flow there, man, and people don't know about it.
Yeah.
Low prices, very good cash flow. But yeah, keep going.
Definitely. Yeah, no, it's true, man. Yeah, and I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to buy that property. It was actually my wife's mother and stepfather's. It was they owned a sanitation business and they were selling the business, and the real estate there had the 2 duplexes and the commercial garage in the back. That's where they kept all the trucks and everything. And when they talked about selling the company, I was like, listen, when you guys sell the company, I want to buy the real estate. I told them that for years. 2021, it came time for them to sell the business. I was all about doing creative deals at that point. I was able to talk them into seller financing it to me, 0 money down with a 4.5% interest rate for a 20-year loan. So, which was huge for them also because they just sold the business and did well with that. And I was like, listen, if you sell the property, you're going to be paying 30-40% of the sale price in taxes. Yeah. So I was like, if we can do seller finance, like you guys are guaranteed this X amount of dollars for the next 20 years, you don't have to worry about it. And they were all about it. They're like, that sounds great. It's a great idea. So it was a little bit of a value add property. I had to redo 2 of the units. 2 of the needed like new decks out front. And what I did with the commercial garage, it's actually 5 bays. So I sectioned each bay off into separate bays and I rent each bay separately. So I was able to actually get the cash flow up to like $2,500 on that property with no money in the deal. So that was a killer one.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, creative financing, like people don't believe that it could really happen sometimes. Like so my friends that I talk to, they're like, how'd you buy that with like no money? It's like, this is how. You just gotta be very creative. You gotta think about what the sellers are looking for. And even if they don't really know what they're looking for, you can show them like different options based on like what you think that they want their life to be. Like you did with them. So you're basically like, you could sell it, but you have to pay this huge tax difference and you just made a lot of money off your business selling that. So like, why do you need a lump sum of money? You might as well have passive income to just continuously come in. And that one helps them because they don't have to pay that big tax bill. And 2, it helps you because now you can get to the property and do what you need to do with it with like a better financial situation.
Exactly.
But yeah, when you brought that up to them, were they like, did they ever think about that? Or did they just like, you just brought up to them and they were like, oh, wow, that is a good idea.
Yeah, no, they were, it was kind of because the conversation, it sounds like it happened right away, right? But it was like a couple week conversation back and forth. Obviously they had speculations like anyone would, like, what if you don't pay? What if this? What if that? And basically at the end of the day, like, let's say you take over a property sub 2 or seller finance in 2 or 3 years, you don't make those payments. That person's just getting that property back and you made payments for 2, 3, 5 years, whatever it was. So yes, there is risk, but there's benefits with it too. And creative finance isn't the solution for definitely not. But like you said, certain situations, a lot of time investors, commercial buildings, it works out a lot in those situations because those guys have tax implications that they're trying to avoid.
Yeah, there's tons of ways to do creative financing and people don't think about it. There's like seller financing, there's finance. Seller credit is one that you can do too. That's more known, like getting seller credit to help like buy down your closing costs and stuff, which in turn helps your return of investment a lot more anyway. You could have the seller hold even partial note to help with the down payment. And you can even have basically the seller, like in commercial deals, it gets super creative. There's like tons of different ways. Like say if you're buying like land from somebody, you can give them like a $20,000 deposit for like a $500,000 piece of land. So you could just at least do your due diligence to get the land ready to be sold to a builder. And then you basically pay off the seller the $480,000 difference. And then the builder's paying like $1 million. So then you make like $500,000. There's like so many different ways to be creative with it. But as long as everybody's winning and on the same page, perfectly fine. And it's smart. It's a smart way to do deals. And like real estate's not very as straightforward as some people may think it is. Like you just make an offer, you pay it, you can really negotiate stuff, which is just the beauty of it too.
Right. Yeah. That was the other benefit too with seller finance on that deal. Obviously they would have had to fix the property up, right, to put it on the market, and they would have had to pay paid realtors and stuff. So I mean, at the end of the day, they save a ton of money just doing that deal that way.
And probably a ton of headache too.
Exactly.
The property. I mean, fixing up properties, even if it's your full-time job, there's a ton of headaches that come up. But especially people that just sold their business and just really want to step away, like they do not want to fix up a property and sell it. They just want to go do their thing.
Exactly.
So let's go on to another question that I have for you. I just want to get into kind of learn about some of the resources that you have used to help you so far in your real estate journey. Maybe some like we talked about the podcast and Bigger Pockets and stuff like that. But have you like gone to network events? Do you have mentors? Have you done anything outside of the realm of Bigger Pockets to kind of educate yourself? And what would you say is a good place to start for people trying to get into investing?
Yeah, like going back to the Pace Morby thing. So when I signed up with Pace and a few months ago, the community that he has there is just unbelievable. Like you're part of this Facebook group. There's events all over the country year round that you can go to. There's actually Zooms every day that you can hop into and ask questions, stuff like that. So that's been a super, super good resource for me. And I recommend that to anybody. I also went to an event called Dealmaker Weekend, which was really cool. That was about buying businesses and real estate too creatively. But just any networking event with like-minded people, you're going to make connections no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. I always harp like some people might think that paying for like a mastermind is stupid, but it's really not. You're paying for access to like so many different aspects of knowledge based on people that have tons of experience, people that might have not as much as experience, but just the whole collective like mastermind group. Anytime that I've joined one, it's just accelerated me onto the next step. It really brought me out of my comfort zone too, because you meet people that are doing like, you think you're doing good, and then you meet people that are doing like so much more, and then you're like, dang, how's he doing that? Everybody's the same. It's just people working trying to figure it out.
Yep, definitely. I think surrounding yourself with like-minded people, or even people who are, maybe where you want to be, is so important to just be around those people, like learn what the vibes that they're putting off. You know what I mean? There's so much stuff that you can learn just by being around people who are where you want to be.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so speaking of networking and things like that, did you ever get into like reading real estate books or anything like that? And if you could recommend a few that you enjoyed and why, that'd be great. Which ones?
Yeah, definitely. I would totally recommend Rocket Fuel. It's a book called Rocket Fuel, and it's basically explains the difference between visionaries and integrators in businesses and various roles in business. Because I think a lot of times, especially for me, someone who's had a few businesses, you wear a lot of hats, right? Like, especially with the trucking company, I was driving the truck, I was coming home, I was working on the truck, I was doing the taxes, I was doing all the back end paperwork, and it just wears on you, man. And if you're able to really find out what you're good at, and like for me, I think I'm a visionary. I have a ton of good ideas. I'm really good at making connections and networking with people. So for me, like an integrator, somebody who can come in and do all the back end paperwork for me, kind of make sure everything's on schedule, is like so important to really delegate those tasks instead of trying to just do everything by yourself. That's what I've learned over the past few years. I'd say the most is you can't do everything yourself, right? Especially if you want to scale. Like, yeah, you can do a flip or two, but if you're really trying to scale your business, which this year I'm looking to do at least 6 flips. I would say delegating and finding a partner, or finding somebody not necessarily who's good at the things you're good at, but the things that you're not good at, to really help you with those tasks is huge.
Yeah, and just coming up with like a plan, like a good business plan, and how to execute everything correctly and with speed. And once you come up with like a base idea of like what your fix and flips are going to be, kind of like your brand, I feel like it goes faster there too. Like with your fix and flips, you usually do very similar on each fix and flip. Like if I walked into 2 properties, would I be like, oh, this was Tony's? Like Tony always does like great stuff like this. Is it like very similar? Do you always switch it up based on like property?
So I have switched switched it up. Like I said, we've only done 4 flips. So I think this year going into that, I definitely need to have maybe like a lower contractor grade-ish flip and then a higher end one. But both of them, you'll have like SOPs essentially written for each flip that you can hand to a contractor and say, this is the flooring, this is the paint, these are the countertops, these are the cabinets. And it just takes a lot off of you. Cause I would say like the last flip I did was a big flip in Sutton. It was like a higher end house. It sold for $760,000. And I made a lot of mistakes on that one. I bought it and I was essentially going to wholesale it. So I was just going to buy it off market, clean it up, paint it, and just put it on the market. And we got in there. My wife's looking at it. My aunt came and looked at it and they're like, you got to do a kitchen in here. So I'm like, they got in my head about that. And we ended up doing like a $40,000 kitchen. We did $20,000 bathroom. So I put a ton of money into it, which I'm not complaining. We still made good money, but I probably could have made the same money, if not more, if I had just did what I originally thought, which was to wholesale it. Because the spread there, it was getting to the point where it's like, yeah, we're putting all this money in, we can ask more for it, but we could have also made that same money just painting it and put it on the market. So
yeah, and like that falls on like what I kind of do too with like long-term rentals with like multifamilies, like bigger multifamilies. There's like, you gotta look at the location and figure out like how much money you actually need to put into something to get like the max spread that you want. So like long-term rentals, you look at like what are the market rent units, and like that's when you want to get it to. Like if you're in an area that gets market rent with like Formica countertops and like no dishwasher, but it has like no microwave, but it has like decent cabinets and whatever, but it gets a good LVP, but it gets market rent. Like you don't want to go above that. You don't want to be like, I'm going to pay for like granite. I want to get like stainless steel appliances. I'm going to get like a garbage disposal and dishwasher. Like you're putting money into something that's not going to give you return back. So that's one thing about real estate that I feel like a lot of people learn once they get into it, is that you can't let emotions kind of get into it the way you like want to keep doing stuff.
Right.
And you think that it would make it worth more. You really got to crunch the numbers. And that's a good story. And exactly probably what happened there a little bit is rather than just doing it the way that you wanted to with the same spread, you had some people kind of whisper in your ear, which was probably emotions behind it because they wanted to make it look nice. And then you're like, all right, I'll do it. And then you did it.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, probably right. It'll sell easier, and which it did sell fast. But I would say definitely stick to your plan. Like when you buy a property, just don't vary from your plan. It worked out for me. Obviously, I still made money. I could have not. There's always that fact of you don't know. So
yeah, what's the next steps for you? So you say this year you want to try to do 6 fix and flip. What's it look like the next? What are your goals in your business? Like what's your long-term goals, and what are your steps you're going to get there? And how do you think people can help you get there? And how can you help people as well?
Yeah, basically. Definitely. Yeah. So that last flip I did, it was actually, I raised money for it too, which was the first time I raised money to buy one. So I raised $100,000, and how that happened was just an organic conversation with a business owner, a friend of mine. I had told him what I was doing and the success I had with the burr and the flips. And he was like, man, he was like, I want in on your next one. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, no, I want in. And I was like, all right, cool. Like you want to do the work with me? And he's like, no, I'll give you the money. Just let me know how much I want in. I was like, all right, cool. So he gave me $100,000 for the down payment on this one. That was another mistake I made. At the time, I was like, I didn't know how to structure a return and stuff like that. So I was like, I'll give you 15% on the money, which was great, right? Good for him. I didn't amortize that 15%. So it was basically a flat fee. I had his money for 5 months for the flip, and I gave him back $15,000 in that 4 months, at the end of that 4 months. So like he really made a better return if you look at it.
He made like, what did he make? He made that's 15,000 in 4 months, times that by 3. That's 30, 45. 30. So you gave him a nice 45% return. That's pretty damn good.
So he was stoked. He was like, he didn't say anything, but he knew, exactly what was going on. But honestly, it wasn't a bad thing because he made out great. I made out great. And he's ready to put in another 100 or 200 grand to do the next one. So at the end of the day, I made money, he made money. And that's kind of what it's all about. I've realized, honestly, is relationships, connections, trusting people. I mean, this guy literally just gave me $100,000. When that happened, that was such an eye-opening experience to me because I knew him, but at the same time, like it's $100,000. You know what I mean? It's a lot of money. So that was powerful for me to see.
Yeah. And the thing is like, there's 2 things to take away from that. One is like, once you start doing actual work in real estate and then you start networking and telling people about it, there's going to be people in the room that have money that don't want to do the work. They just have the money. They're willing to give it to people that they trust and have formed relationships with, which is what you did. So it's about like building relationship and just letting people know what you do. And then obviously once you do get that first like funds of money, you did the right thing actually. actually, because you overpaid him, which I think is like to build your track record, you want to give like great returns at the beginning anyway. So you kind of accidentally did the right thing. And like, because you gave him a slamming thing, what he's going to do is he's going to go tell people. So be like, oh my God, I gave Tony $100,000. He gave me 45% return like within 4 months. And they're like, what? And then he's going to talk to his friends that might have money. They're going to come to you and be like, yo, can we invest? And you're like, all right. And then all of a sudden your business is like flourishing and you're having a over money problem and a less deal flow problem. That's like a great problem to have.
Right.
Rather than the other way.
So I had dinner with him after we closed and everything. And I did tell him, I was like, listen, this was great. You made out great on this deal. I made out great. Going forward, I might have to do like an amortized interest rate here, depending on the deal. Because if I can pay somebody a flat fee and still make money and I make money, it's good. But it's also expensive money, right? Like I could have got that from anybody, really. That was a no-brainer. But yeah, going forward, I did learn from it and I'm glad it happened, like I said. And yeah, I think just making those connections is huge.
Exactly. And it still was successful. So at the end of the day, it worked out. And now he's probably ready to give you more money. And he's probably like, fine, you can do the amortized thing because it worked. So he's like, whatever.
Right.
Like, just keep doing it. Yeah. So I don't want to keep you here too long, but I just want to wrap this up. But is there anything else you want to tell the audience, such as like where to reach you at, social media handles, any meetups that you go to or you want to attend, if you're doing like other events or anything, or even just how to contact you if you want people to reach out? Yeah, just go over that a little bit and maybe people might reach out. Who knows?
Yeah, definitely. Next investor, right?
Yeah, honestly.
So I'm Tony Toaster on all Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff. It's kind of like a name that stuck from high school and people usually tend to remember it. So I was like, we'll keep it going. But my advice to anybody, especially people starting out, is just do your research. Don't go into stuff blindly, but also take steps. Like take imperfect action is what I've learned. A lot of people, myself included, tend to get caught up in doing a ton of research and then not doing anything with it, right? Mm-hmm. So I think taking imperfect action, yes, you're going to make mistakes. Yes, you might lose a little money, but in the long run, taking action is what's going to change your life.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can sit there and read and listen to podcasts all you can, which is very important in the beginning, but it gets to a point where like you just need to take action because taking the action is where you learn the most and it's where you execute and it's where you actually develop yourself more. Yep. You can't get stuck in what's it called? Paralysis analysis. You don't
analysis paralysis. Yep.
Analysis paralysis. Yeah. Don't want to get stuck in that because I've met people that are stuck in that and you're just like, come on, take that step, and they just don't, and then they never really grow.
Right.
But all right, Tony, it was great having you on here. We can wrap this up. And is there anything else you want to say before we send off?
No, I appreciate you having me on, man. Hopefully, maybe I can get back on in the future here.
Absolutely, yeah. After this year, when you do 12 flips, 24 flips, and you start growing like crazy, we'll have you back on there, and yeah, we can see how you're doing.
Cool, man. Sounds good.
Thank you, Tony. See you guys.